My name is Michael Parfit, and this is Suzanne Chisholm, and we're filmmakers in British Columbia. We are best known for a film about an orca who came to encounter human beings, and because he was by himself, he tried to socialize with people, and it was quite an extensive and dramatic story, so we made a film about that. And we've also done quite a bit of other work, and in the past worked for National Geographic. Eventually, our film was narrated by Ryan Reynolds and has been shown pretty much all over the world. So that was what we're most known for. We've also done some other things. So I'll turn it over to Suzanne to add.
Yeah, we're very interested in a wide range of stories. We've done some stories about human cultures. We've also done a documentary about the beluga whales of the St. Lawrence. And years ago, about 20 years ago, we did a series for National Geographic Channel on the Inuit relationship to the natural world, and that included whales. So we're interested in all kinds of things, from people to whales to oceans, and we've had the good fortune to work together for more than 20 years. And through our work, we get to tell lots of stories and meet lots of amazing people.
Hi, so I'm Ray Jin, and from Taiwan. Well, right now I'm kind of a freelance photographer for the still image. Well, actually, I have been trying, doing the video or a documentary. So that's how we met in the IWWF in 2013. But after that, I still mostly working on the still image. My background actually is biology. So in my students' age, I study like the reptiles, for like the snakes, like the lizards. But after that, I jump into the ocean and start working with the citations.
An unusual family, I guess. I don't know. We have a 9-year-old boy who has been very interested in photography. So he's quite interested in nature.
He's already 9 years old.
How old is yours now?
Actually, I have one is 7 and one is 8.
Yeah, they grow up quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, so quickly, yes.
But it's really nice because for example, when we were doing our beluga film, our son Christopher was 3.5. So he came with us into the field, and it doesn't always work to take your families into the field. In our case, we're married. We've been married a very long time, so we can take each other. But then when we had a child, it's like, how do you make this work? And it doesn't always work. But with the beluga film, for example, it did work. We moved to Quebec, and a couple of times he came out on the boat with us, and he loves belugas, and he also learned to speak French. And of course, he knows a lot about orcas as well, even though he was born long after we finished the film about Luna. He was able to come to some film festivals with us, and he's very proud of that work. And I think he brings that to his own classmates, his love for the ocean, his love for photography, and that's part of who we are as a family, and we hope that can help change minds everywhere.
Yeah, we do find that he gets quite passionate about animals and about to the point where probably more so than we are in a lot of ways.
Just let them grow the way they want to. I have two kind of a working situation. One is kind of give a narrating a whale watching boat, and a second situation is working on the research boat, where I have this kind of two situations to combine work with. So when I go out for the regular or the easier whale watching boat, I usually will take them, and they usually will stay on the boat with me. And as you say, the kids are amazing. They can, they have their own way to realize the nature, to explain the natures, and enjoy it. Yeah.
It's really interesting, Ray, since we met you, 8 years ago,
yes.
One of the things that has changed hugely for us, and I'm going to let Mike talk about it because he's much better at this, but it's using drones to film whales. So when we filmed the story about Luna, any of the shots we had from the air were taken from the airplane that Mike was flying. And then when we did our beluga film, which we started filming in 2014, 2015, Mike started using drones, and he's a really good drone pilot. And one of the really cool things about using the drones is that you can see the whales in a way that doesn't disturb them, So for example, we were with some beluga researchers on the St. Lawrence River, and one of the guys, he'd been studying the belugas for 30 years. Mike was out filming, and it was the first time the researcher had seen a calf nursing from the mum. And it was because when you're in a boat, or of course if you're in the water, you're disturbing the whales in different ways depending on the species. With a drone, you have this really quiet little machine that looks down, so the whales don't even notice it. And it's really amazing how it's changed not only the way we as storytellers can look at these animals, but the way researchers can look at their behaviors, even populations. But I want you to talk about.
No, I'm curious. I'd be curious about what the drone situation is like there, because in some cases, it's prohibited to fly them. You can't do it, or there's zones that you can't fly over them. And in some cases, drones are restricted because people think they're disturbing the animals. So I don't know. Is that something that you are doing or are thinking of? Is drone flights?
Well, actually, we are similar with you guys. What you are saying, we are using drone right now, and you can see very, very different things. So, of course, Taiwan, we have a law to, like, you have to get your permit, you have to get your license for flying a drone. But if you got that, actually, it's very big help for doing that. So, like, what are we doing right now? Like, we are doing like the resource dolphins research and photo ID for many years, and also the sperm whale in here. So, like in last year, actually in Taiwan, we in these past 20 years, we always see sperm whale showing up in the east coast of Taiwan every year, maybe like 10 to 20 times. They are kind of migrating through. But starting from last year, actually, they kind of bumping up. It's more like a super parts situation. Like we have last year, we don't know why, but the number of the sperm whales showing up, growing up very, very in a big amount. So we started using drone to see like as you say, you can see the mom with the calf together, and then see they scratching each other, or they doing that. And even I think you also know that there is even some research they start using drone for measuring their body length or something like that, right? So we are starting kind of trying to doing that. We try to doing like taking pictures and kind of start use it for major things. The situation in Taiwan, in what we're doing right now, it's only started. We start doing this in only in these 2 years. So we still also try to find a better way to doing that. Even like you have to train the people how they fly the drone, and then you also have to train the people how they, use the photo we take to kind of to making the photo IDs. So we're doing that, but in the starting, still in the beginning.
One of the things that I find really interesting here, in British Columbia, because they've been identifying the whales since 1976. And at the time that happened, the scientist who thought about studying them or identifying them was thought of as crazy, that he was trying something that was impossible. It was like, well, how do you identify a fish? It's just going by, it swims off, you don't know. And so at that time, there was a lot of capturing of orcas for parks, and they thought that the orcas just came in from the open ocean and came by and then left. And his photo ID was so powerful in changing all of the political positions on the orcas that it was probably responsible for saving the orcas that are the little whale that we met, called the southern residents, which are the whales that are probably the most studied orcas in the world. And so this photo ID stuff, one of the things that I'm really delighted to hear you're doing this, because it's not a piece of the science that a lot of people really understand how important it is. It's people sort of say, well, you take a picture, so what? You've got these pictures. But they don't understand that when you do obviously, but here people have had a hard time understanding how serious this work is and how much information you can get from it just by starting to identify these animals. So I find it really exciting to think about you starting to do that. And I'm also curious about if the public is responding to this, if the public is interested, and if they're beginning to understand that you actually can get to know individual animals by taking a photograph of them several times a year, year after year after year. It's such amazing information you get from that simple thing.
Yeah, well, of course, I think as you get your information, you will get excited because you're loving it. But you want to let all the public know how this, as you say, how is it important? But like we have a kind of a project for letting people. It's kind of a lessons for you can give a talk into a school or you even give a talk into a public, but. It's kind of, the structure is kind of a pyramid, in the basic bottom, of course, the people not care so much. But when the layer goes up, stair goes up higher and higher, the people, the more a little people will care about it. So we want to try to prove that, let people more know about what we are doing, and the animals is out there, and you have to, they may be about fishing, facing about the problem about the fishing net and all this stuff. So I think that's what we of course you can, like a picture, like a film. Of course, the basic thing is people see it's beautiful, but besides that, we want to use that to do more for let people to know about the environment, about the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all of the around here, people got to know these animals so well.
Yeah,
we gave them nicknames and things like that, and sometimes that can be scientifically a little questionable. But the public would get to know them and know when they came back, and so the fact that the animals were recognizable began to, I think, make the public feel as if they were almost part of that community, and it's been quite remarkable how that's happened here. But of course that has been working all over the world now, the photo ID stuff and what can be learned from it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then once people start caring about individuals, it helps them care about the whole species and about the habitat and about really the big wide ocean. So I think, the work that you do, photographing and identifying, I think those are really important tools that will help people make better choices, because people love whales, and the more people learn about them. With our film Luna, we showed that documentary around the world. We were in the Middle East, we went to Japan, it was shown in South Africa, all over the United States, and people responded to this orca. And you can, why is it that people love these individuals so much? But that's how it works. People respond to stories, and there were so many behaviors in Luna. I mean, we know cetaceans are incredibly intelligent. We know they're social. We know they have a lot of the same brain structures or similar brain structures as we have. So, of course, they have feelings and emotions, and maybe they're different from ours. But the fact is, their behaviors show so many things that resonate with us. And I think the more that people learn about the stories of individuals and of groups of whales and dolphins, the more they're going to care. And I think it's exciting that you're at a turning point in Taiwan where people are starting to care. It's so ironic because Taiwan, of course, is an island, so you would think naturally, of course, people are fascinated with the ocean. But it wasn't too long ago here in British Columbia, 50, 60 years ago, people didn't know anything about orcas. They thought that they were dangerous and killers, and if you ever fell into the water, that was it. A fisherman would die. And now people love these animals. So it doesn't take that long for things to turn around with good storytelling and good photos.
Do you find that that's happening now, that people are the public in general is taking interest in the things you're doing?
In 20 years ago, Taiwan started whale watching industries, so let the people know, there's so many citations out there. And when you start in the whale watching, we also starting, so we say we're doing the record, doing the research, all these things combined together. So when people see it, as you say, when they see it, when they saw it, and then when they know the story about the animals, it's kind of a start. And this kind of a starting, it's kind of, bring people to the oceans and not only let them know the citation, they will start knowing everything around them. They will knowing about the environment. Yeah, so I think we are in the halfway of that. So people start getting interested, and more people start paying attention, even not only to the citations, everything around the citation or everything around the oceans.
That's so important I think for all of us to understand how these animals live and their world, because even though most of us humans, we live on land, what we do impacts the ocean, and it impacts the habitat of these amazing creatures, and it impacts their lives. And I think the more we see how they live, and the more we can see how what we do can affect them, I think that's the only way we're going to take responsibility for making their world better. We went through that with Luna. I mean, in a lot of ways, we want to keep nature separate from humans, but we can't. We've crossed that boundary already where humans are impacting cetaceans and all the other creatures of the sea in so many ways. So, Luna was just one little piece of that story. And because we are already affecting them, we need to take that responsibility to say, how can we make their lives better?
We were thinking about stories and the storytelling, just the simple telling of individual stories that people do naturally. And I really feel like that is one of the greatest ways to communicate. And I keep trying to do that. We keep trying to put together these things that are actually stories, because very often we try to hit people just with facts. But if you think about what you're doing and all these things that you're doing, and to me, one of these stories, I'd like to come back to that one, is the story of what it takes to identify these animals and to record them and to record that and do that year after year after year. And suddenly, you don't just have a pile of data when you do that. You suddenly, after you've gotten all of that, you have a story. And it's just an astonishing story of the lives of other beings who cannot communicate with us, they can't tell us what they're thinking, but just by being recorded where they are and what they're doing, you're providing this story, and I really love that idea.
Yeah, I think that's the thing touching the people. You have like what to me, what I think is the data. Of course, they have it's important for the research, for all the background details, but the stories it's kind of bridge between the data and the people. You have to, that's what I also think into my image. When I started taking the pictures, I want to bring the data into a story and bring it to the public.
Yeah, exactly. And that takes a lot of effort. And this is where you're a translator, really. You're an interpreter in your own language, really, of things that are difficult to understand, and yet they form themselves into stories that people can grasp. And the nice thing about a story is it doesn't necessarily have to be obvious, but if you tell it and it's a story, people can absorb things from a story that they don't even know they're getting. And I just think I love that. I love the possibility of telling stories like that.
Of course, you can come here please come and stay as long as you want.
Well,
we would love to come.
We would love to come to Taiwan. Yes, absolutely. And so we'll put that in our minds of what's possible. And likewise, I would hope that you would come in this direction. Yes, exactly.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Here's the truth. We live on a little island. In the Pacific Ocean. Taiwan's an island. Islands have characters of their own, and I think we would love to come. First of all, because you have lots of cetaceans in the ocean around you, but also the people. And I really like how this conversation started. That this is just, in a lot of ways, it's the beginning of discovery that the Taiwanese people are going to have with respect to the ocean. Taiwan has a long history, a long complicated history, and to bring in these living sentient creatures like cetaceans, and to grow that appreciation for whales in a place like Taiwan. We would love to come. We would absolutely love to come, and maybe we can even bring you a wagon for your little boy, but I probably wouldn't need it anymore. So let's keep the conversation going.
Bring your boys so we can come
love it.
go to the ocean together by one boat.
Oh yeah, we are not going anywhere without him.
Yeah,
He comes with us, but no, it would be an honor to come to Taiwan and work and try to tell stories ourselves there too. So we would also like to learn about your story.
Yeah, truly say, of course, the Taiwan, we have like suicide citations, all the nature environment. So welcome, just if you have any chance or any time. Yeah.
Let's keep this conversation going. I hope we can make that work out sometime.
Yeah.
Let's keep in touch, and let's not wait another 8 years before we connect again, okay? Because I think it's 8 years. That's too long.
Yeah. We keep in touch and let you find a chance to come to Taiwan.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, and thanks for having us. This has been a lot of fun reconnecting with you like this.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you. You too.
Okay.